Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. We could start in a couple different places. We could start in Madison, Wisconsin, where Wisconsin crushed Indiana. We could start at the world's most famous arena, but I want to go ahead and start with the game Tuesday night, Oxford, Mississippi, Kentucky traveling Ole Miss, one of two top 25 matchups on the slate. Thought it was interesting. We previewed this game a little bit on whatever day it was, Tuesday afternoon show. And what we said was pretty straightforward. What we said was, it was a situation where everybody is focused on Kentucky coming in. They've lost 3 of their last 4. Certainly the most notable loss against Arkansas a day ago, or last time that they played. And so you kind of really thought that we were going to get the best effort out of Kentucky, but also thought it was kind of worth noting. Ole Miss had lost 4 of their last 5, I actually believe. And basically, you thought you were going to get a good effort from them. I thought it was going to be a close, low-scoring game. Ole Miss isn't great offensively, but they're pretty good defensively. You also kind of think, okay, well, wait a second now. Kentucky, we're going to get a much better effort from them after a game in which they just got not really blown out, but frankly embarrassed at home against Arkansas. That's what we're going to get, right? We're going to get a nice, close, low-scoring. I think I said 70-68 on Tuesday's show. Torres was not right as Kentucky gets smoked at Ole Miss. Ugly, ugly, ugly game if you're a Kentucky Wildcat fan, and specifically ugly on the defensive end. Final score in this one, 98-84. Kentucky has now lost 4 of 5. And it was not pretty in Oxford, Mississippi, okay? So let's go ahead and dive in. And I think listen, first of all, we got to give credit to Ole Miss. Okay, I don't want to dismiss what Ole Miss did. Chris Beard has that team rolling. By the way, we're going to talk about Chris Beard later as it pertains maybe to the Indiana job. But the bottom line is, listen, you don't want to dismiss Ole Miss. But the story here is Kentucky, okay? It's not just that they've lost 4 of their last 5. It is that the same prevailing problem keeps popping up. It is the fact that they just don't play defense, okay? And so, like I said, I really felt like, in my opinion, one, we were going to get the best effort of Kentucky that we've seen in a long time. The bottom line is that, you look at this team, you look at this program, yes, they are struggling, but they have generally kind of played really well in big spots when you didn't really expect them to play well. The Kentucky or the Duke game early in the season, Gonzaga, remember they were without Lamont Butler. You go on and on down the list. At Mississippi State felt tough. You find a way to win. At Tennessee did not feel like a game that you were going to win. So in general, they've played really well in spots where people haven't expected it from them. And instead in this game, they kind of just rolled over and died, okay? And so when it comes to Kentucky, and by the way, they rolled over and died, played better in the second half, but it doesn't change the fact that this thing was ugly. It was not pretty. And I think 2 things can be true, right? Is one, we do have to acknowledge, like, Kentucky is dealing with a lot of injuries. Lamont Butler is out, starting point guard. Kirk Reese is out, backup point guard. Andrew Carr is still dealing with that lingering back thing. And so I don't want to dismiss and say that injuries are not part of the issue here. But at the same time, let's also acknowledge something completely different, which is the fact that as you look at this team and as you look at the season, first of all, everybody's dealing with injuries, right? Sakai Ziegler's out at Tennessee. Janai Broome missed time at Auburn. Alabama's been dealing with all sorts of injury problems. By the way, Walter Clayton is out at Florida. I mean, I could go on. Boogie Fland at Arkansas. Every team in college basketball right now is dealing with injuries. UConn hasn't had their best player for a month. So it's not that I want to completely dismiss the injuries. But the thing that I keep coming back to, and the thing that I know a lot of Kentucky fans felt on Tuesday night, because we did a live reaction to it, I think what a lot of Kentucky fans basically said was like, well, wait a second now. It doesn't, you don't have to be a star player to put in good effort. You don't have to be a star player to try hard and compete on both ends of the court. And Kentucky did absolutely none of that, especially early. I mean, all you got to do is look at the final score of this game, but more specifically, just look at the halftime score. You don't have to be an expert to know that in a 40-minute college basketball game, they're trailing by 23 at the half. 23 at the half. They gave up 54 points in the first half. How about this? Ole Miss averaged 8 threes made per game coming into this one. They had 9 threes made in the first half. Overall, they hit 13 threes in this game. And again, we understand that Kentucky isn't at full strength. We also understand that's not an excuse for a lack of effort and a lack of want to on the defensive end. Now, to their credit, they came back. To their credit, they made it a game. It was probably about a 7-8 point game late in the second half before Ole Miss holds on. But you look at the stats, you watch the game, it's jarring. Most points Kentucky's allowed against Ole Miss since 1971, I believe, is a stat that Jimmy Dykes dropped on the broadcast. The stat that is jarring, and you can see it on the bottom line, Kentucky forced a grand total of 1 turnover the entire game. I've been watching college basketball a long time. I don't know that at any point I've ever seen a game where a team has a 24-1 assist to turnover ratio in a game. Only that's exactly what Ole Miss had. And it was just a debacle and really an embarrassment from the beginning. Again, they fought till the end. Bring it up to say this is not good. And listen, I think right now it does sort of fall on one guy. Now, I'm not here to do the whole, Mark Pope is on the hot seat or the fan base is, he's losing the fan base. I don't believe that. I think most realistic Kentucky fans believe that coming into this year, it was a total crapshoot, probably a middle of the pack in the SEC, had 3-4 weeks to put together a roster, 0 returning players. That's not something that Rick Barnes dealt with, that Bruce Pearl dealt with, that Chris Beard dealt with in the course of the offseason. But I will say, I'm not saying that, Mark Pope is like on the hot seat or that fans are turning on him. But I will say it is a frustrating trend. And I'll take it a step further. I think what's crazy is even Mark Pope doesn't seem to have answers for this situation. Producer Matt, play what Mark Pope had to say after the game about the state of his team.
For us, the biggest frustration we're feeling right now is on the defensive end, and I'm doing a poor job of finding answers for that right now.
Mark, Ole Miss had 1 turnover. Do you ever remember being part of a game where the opposing team had just 1 turnover?
I don't. I'm not sure.
What do you think? It was that just good ball handling on their part?
Well, no, it's poor. It's poor. My guys are playing hard. I'm doing a poor job with our team defensively right now, and that's it's a credit to Ole Miss, and it's a real issue for me, and I got to figure out how to.
So that was Mark Pope. And let me start by saying I give him credit, right? He's holding himself accountable. I think he's saying the right things, not placing blame on the players, not placing blame on anybody other than himself. But I will also say that's not an excuse for the efforts that you have gotten defensively. And I think there's really 2 separate things that are popping up together. By the way, chat is very quiet today. Hop in, share your thoughts on the game and your thoughts in general on the rest of the college basketball slate, okay? But when it comes to Mark Pope, when it comes to this game, one, I do think I give him a little bit of credit because he kind of owned it. It's on me. I've got to be better. I'm trying to find answers. But the alternative is, we're now well past the halfway point of the regular season. This situation is getting worse, not better. And this is a situation where like it's been an issue all year and it's not getting resolved in any way, shape, or form. I mean, just look at the results from Kentucky this season. 89 points allowed in overtime against Gonzaga, 85 to Louisville against the Louisville team that was missing 3-4 key players in that game. You go out 85 to Ohio State. Florida, 100 allowed in a win. After Florida, how about 90 allowed at Mississippi State? 102 against Alabama. I understand Alabama is one of the best teams in college basketball. It does not change the fact that is really bad. 89 against Arkansas, and now 98 against Ole Miss. Like, that is just a trend that is not getting better. I think the thing that also is concerning, and this is something, I think, smart people that are paying attention to this team feel as well, is that, like, what's up with these slow starts, right? Like it's one thing if you just lose to a team that's better. It's one thing that if you lose to a team that just is a great offensive team. Again, I'm not going to blame Mark Pope because he gave up 103 to Alabama. Everybody gives up 90 plus to Alabama. Same with Florida when they're at full strength. But one, it's happening against teams that aren't great offensively, like Ole Miss, like Arkansas. And beyond that, the other thing we talked about a little bit in the live reaction was, what about the fact that, like, you're falling down big in every game. That is a lack of preparation, not preparation, but it's a lack of showing up ready to go, a lack of showing up focused. That does fall on the coaching staff as well. Again, you were down 23 points at the half in this game. What are we doing here? You were down against Arkansas at the half, and you fell down early in that one. The stunning one to me is still the Vanderbilt game. You were down 14 points at the half to Vanderbilt. Like, you rally, you make it a game. It doesn't change the fact that you should not be falling down 14 points to Vanderbilt. And so it's a combination of the defense isn't good enough, but then on top of that, you're falling behind late. You're showing up not ready to play. And once you fall behind, you can have a game in the second half like Ole Miss where you actually play pretty well. And the problem is that even if you're playing well, it doesn't really matter because you're just not showing up ready to play, and you're falling down by so much that by the time you're back locked into the game, it's too late and you have too big of a deficit to overcome. That's kind of what happened against Ole Miss. Again, against Ole Miss, you played fine. You outscored them by 9 in the second half. You played fine in the second half is what I should say. But you outscored them by 9 in the second half. The problem was when you're down by 23, outscoring somebody by 9 isn't good enough over the final 20 minutes. And so to me, two things I try to never do. I try to never tell a fan base how they should feel or how they should act or anything like that. Again, the Kentucky booing John Calipari, I don't care. If you want to boo him, boo him. If you don't, that's fine. But I will say is that I'm not going to tell fan bases how to act. I'm not going to tell coaches how to coach. But this has to get better and it has to be resolved. I don't know what the issues are. I don't know what the problems are. I'm not a coach. But I'm not paid $5 million to have answers to this stuff either, like Mark Pope is. And so I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. I don't know what they're practicing, but this is just, it's got to get better, and it's got to get better in a hurry. Not because anyone expected Kentucky to win a national championship, nothing like that. But it's because in this SEC, first of all, there's no easy games. And so the more you let this problem linger, the more it's just going to keep kind of compounding itself, and the schedule doesn't really get easier from here. The good news is you have as close to a gimme on Saturday as you can possibly have at home against South Carolina. You just have to win that game. You get the return game against Tennessee after that. We'll see what happens there. That's next Tuesday. But it doesn't get any easier. You still have at Alabama. You still have Auburn at home. You still have at Texas. You still have at Missouri. And you have got to get this problem figured out. I think more importantly, you just can't live life expecting to score 90 points a game or needing to score 90 points a game to win. So I just bring it up because, listen, I still think Pope has largely exceeded expectations in year one, but we're kind of coming back down to where we thought they would be, right? They were picked to finish 8th in the SEC in the preseason. I thought that was crazy. Well, you look at the standings now. They are currently in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, tied for 8th place in the SEC with Mississippi State, Vandy, and Texas. So listen, at some point, I do think you got to get healthy. At some point, I do feel more like, listen, you can blame some of it on not having your guys, but these are issues that have to get figured out. I'm not a coach. I'm not an X's and O's expert, but I ain't getting paid $5 million to have the answers either. Kentucky's got to get that defense right. And by the way, if they can, boom, they could turn this thing around really quickly because they're still scoring at an elite level. Listen, I've said it on all the things that we've talked about when we've talked about Kentucky. I don't know what's going on with Lamont Butler. Mark Pope did kind of have an interesting comment after the game about, they were asked about the status of Lamont Butler and Kirk Risa. And Mark Pope said, we have to figure out a way to win with the guys that we have. Now, a lot of people took that as, he's going to be, Lamont Butler is going to be out a long time. I just took it as, I don't want injuries to be an excuse, and we got to focus on the guys that are available to play. So disappointing effort from Kentucky. By the way, great effort from Ole Miss. They kind of needed that win. They get it. But man, oh man, what a frustrating game for Kentucky. I think fans have a right to be frustrated.